you, Healing Staff to Wellness. I'm Dr. J,
I'm Mei,
your trusted guide to whole person health, one step.
and one bite at a time.
Yes, today we are going to have fun with
Oh,
our
yeah.
with our guest
Denise Stegall, our friend, of
and the
course, the
menopause mentor.
community partner. She has been um, sharing the knowledge about the menopause and all over the place in the community, in the air too. I mean, everywhere. So we got to bring her back to truly talk about what is um, the topics that people really need to tune in, and there's something we probably need to make sure that we don't ignore it.
Mm.
It's it is not. I mean, the topic is now not just for the aging or the mature age. It actually um, s- affected the younger generation. Some certain knowledge that we may not be aware of or not pay attention to.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much just like we talk about chronic diseases. People don't usually realize it until the symptoms show up. But it has been going on for years. And I feel that the hormone is, we all have hormones, especially teenage time, right? And we didn't think about that at all. We just have fun with it. But
Hey, maybe because you were a man. The girls that are the women that are listening, when we were girls, we were paying attention because I think our hormones just a little differently.
But also, I think for parents, right, as a part of
right,
parenting, that parents really don't know how to manage it. And, when they grew up, may think, well, this is how we grew up, but we didn't know there's such a thing. So,
yeah,
I think that it is so important for us to share this knowledge for parents, for parenting, and for people, for the young generation who are in the stage of the hormone changes, and that is the beauty of our body transformation. how
mm,
do we how do we to get the best of it, and to have a happy good life
yeah,
along with the right of all the along with the topic that we talk about, the aging, healthy aging. From 20 to 30 is a healthy aging, from 30 to 40 is a healthy aging. It's a different stage.
It's
no,
definitely different. When it comes to hormones, hormones for women, we kind of have this idea that, you hit puberty and, it's not such a big deal, though it is. Um, Lots of hormonal changes, ups and downs. We kind of get through that and get to the place where we're in childbearing years. And of course, they change. Our hormones are changing then too. But we know a lot about puberty, and we know a lot about um, fertility and child rearing and pregnancy. We know so much about that. Um, that I believe we just, we can talk to our moms, we can talk to our friends, we can talk to our doctors and get good, solid information. Right? Sometimes, like always, we may need to seek professionals, one or two, to get all of the answers that we need between our 20s into our, say, mid 30s, 35, I'm going to say. But we get answers. So when we get beyond the fertility stage, and I'm going to just say 35 and beyond, just because I'll get to the 35 in a minute. Um, our hormones are changing, but they're changing in a more dramatic way because they're declining. Where in the beginning, during puberty, we've got hormones, they're just starting and they're just kicking in. And then during pregnancy, they're kicking in even more. And then they get to a point where they're like, okay, been there, done that. Um, and they just start to kind of quietly leave the building, so to speak. Slowly but surely, they start to decline. And the reason why I keep picking on the number of 35 is this is where most scientific information that I've read that's out in the lexicon, so to speak. That's the age at where progesterone, which we believe is one of our big pregnancy hormones, it is, but progesterone starts to decline at age 35. Now, could it, on your birthday at 35, does it start dropping? Probably not. It could be a little earlier, it could be a little later, but for the most part, in your mid 30s, progesterone starts to decline. And for me, that was an eye opener because at age 30, I was probably 35, 36, when I realized something's not right. I didn't feel like myself. I wasn't acting like myself. I had these feelings that I never experienced that were more typical of, I think, friends that I knew when I was young who were going through their periods when they were teenagers. The anxiety, the aggression, all of these feelings, and that is so not my personality. And so that was the first thing that I noticed. And like I said, I was around 35 or 36. So the science pretty much pans out to be correct.
So I think I want to take a step back because we didn't really, for the listeners who didn't join our previous episode, can you describe your background, how you got into this menopause thing?
Yes, of course. Okay, so obviously I did not set out in the beginning of my career to become the menopause mentor. My background, actually, going all the way back to college, my degree is hotel restaurant business management with a focus in nutrition. And the nutrition is the piece that I have followed pretty much through my entire life and my entire career. It's what I focus on with my clients, no matter what we're doing, what their focus is. We start with nutrition. So I have several health coaching certifications, life coaching certifications. And as I started to get older and started to experience the challenges that were occurring, these symptoms, these things that just kept happening randomly, I now know this was perimenopause. However, when I was going through 17 years ago, might be 18 now, when I started my journey, there was no help. The OBGYN basically said, well, unless you're here to have a baby or something like that, I don't know how to help you. Primary care doctors were not very helpful. Again, they didn't have the education and background in what we call perimenopause now. They had no idea. So at 35, when you show up at a doctor's appointment and you're having mood issues and you're not sleeping, they say, oh, here's an antidepressant. And we thought, well, this isn't really helping me. I went to several different professionals. I tried truly at one point thousands of dollars in supplements. And again, no real understanding of what was going on in my body. Everybody was trying to fix symptoms without getting to the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
What was the root cause?
Mm-hmm.
It's in perimenopause. And so my hormones were acting quite erratically. We tend to think that, like, we talk about hormone balance. And I believe wholeheartedly that there's never been a day in our lives as women that our hormones are completely balanced. We want them to work in harmony. And so these are things that I had to learn myself by reading a lot of scientific papers, which, by the way, are really boring, really boring. I mean, to the point where sometimes I would have to go to my husband, who's a medical doctor, and say, I think this is what this paragraph is saying. Can you clarify? And so I did a lot of research, a lot of reading, courses that I took, and courses that were meant for nurses or medical professionals. And I needed this information for me.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started to share what was going on in my life, what had been my experience, women started to come to me and say, hold on a minute, I need your help. And so the more conversations I had about health and wellness, because truly I was a health and life coach for many years. And the transition into the menopause mentor, as I was getting older, my clients were getting older and my listeners were getting older. So it just made sense to focus more on what's going on in a woman's body during the menopause transition, perimenopause, menopause into postmenopause, because that's something in itself as well.
That makes sense. That really makes sense. Wow. And I do agree. In order for us to be the mentor in this specific area, we need to prepare ourselves, be able to bring the medical knowledge that how we digest that to convert to easy to understand format for the general public. A lot of time they don't connect directly. So, and then I think plus the personal experience that can help relate to the symptom that normal the general public that who have the the complaint, also the challenges that they have. And sometimes it's just like it's a kind of a the topic that hardly can bring out to the public, or not, you cannot talk to anybody about this kind of a topic. It's just like,
Well,
am I normal? Is this so? You know,
it's so
it's hard.
true. And that honestly starts with our mothers. Uh, I remember, my mother doesn't remember this. My sister and I remember this. There were 2 years in there when we were in high school that my mom was a crazy person. She does not recall that, but we do. And at the time, I thought, it was stress, it was the job, it was whatever life. And looking back, I now understand she was around 50. So she was around that menopause, perimenopause into menopause. And she was seeing a doctor who didn't have any information for her.
Mhm.
So we didn't have an understanding of what she was going through. She never talked about it, right? My parents are from London, and people from England are very tight-lipped. They're not very open and chatty. Generations, my cousin's generation and the generation behind us, they're very different. But my parents' generation, we didn't talk about those things. So we never had those conversations. So we didn't understand what my mom was going through until many years later when I started to experience these symptoms. And I asked my mom, and she honestly didn't have any answers. Her answer to me was, maybe you need to go see your doctor. But I had seen the doctors. So, mom not having the information made it harder for me, but me now having the information has made it easier for me to help my sister through her transition.
Mm.
So you mentioned something about this perimenopause, hormonal decline, and then you talk about sleep, anxiety, emotional issue. So there, I have. So do you meant that during that hormone decline, those issues we deal with every day are all related to hormone? So what I want to know is why don't you describe what hormones are we talking about and how they are related to all those issues?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, like I had mentioned, at age 35, your progesterone starts to act wonky and starts to decline. And sometimes it's high and sometimes it's low. So it can be a bit erratic, especially in those early perimenopausal years. But what progesterone is a calming hormone. So as that's going away, even just a little bit, that calmness that it gives to our body starts to go away. And that affects our sleep. It's also a mood, not calmer, but mood kind of stabilizer, let's say. And so as it's kind of taking, leaving the leaving the building, so to speak, our mood starts to get erratic. We may have really high, good days, not really high days, but good normal days. But then we start to notice that we have more, not sad days, but kind of blah days. Like we just don't feel like ourselves. Maybe we start getting snappy with the people around us, because our mood is changing. But because the calming effect, it affects also our sleep. So if this calming piece is going away, now we're waking up and we're in the middle of the night and we're awake. So our sleep is affected. When our sleep is affected, our mood is obviously affected. So those two pieces go together. Now, to throw more, more fuel on the fire, when we're not sleeping and we're trying to get by on less sleep, less recovery, rest and recovery, our cortisol levels start to rise. The challenge with cortisol rising is that affects our sleep negatively as well. So we start to get into this negative cycle. And I mean, that's probably the easiest way to explain it, is those three things just keep happening. Like we're not sleeping, so our cortisol level is high, and now we're stressed out, and now our mood is affected. And our mood can affect not only ourselves, but it affects our family. Like I mentioned about my mom and my sister and I, it affects the way you are at work. It affects the way your mind starts working. If you're tired all the time, brain fog starts to become a real thing. And part of it, I believe, in when it comes to especially in perimenopause, it's the sleep, the lack of sleep that's affecting the way we think and the way we make decisions. I think that is what I believe is affecting it the most. As time goes on, yes, as estrogen starts to decline, brain fog gets more and more pronounced.
So it sounds like a vicious cycle, with higher cortisol, and then we all know that they all come from pregnenolone, which can go to cortisol or become testosterone and estrogen. And so when you have too much stress going into the cortisol, then sometimes we call it pregnenolone steal, because those pregnenolones was stolen to make the cortisol instead of going to the sex hormones. So yeah, then sounds making it worse.
Absolutely. And you're right. It becomes a cycle. But then if you throw one more thing into the mix, right?
Uh-oh.
Actually, there's two more things to throw into the mix. The next thing we're going to throw into the mix is inflammation. We're not sleeping. We're not thinking. All of these things are starting to go into a very negative cycle. Our inflammation starts to increase. Now, as that is a challenge in itself. But then with all of these things happening, the cortisol and the no sleep and the inflammation, what's the first thing that a woman is going to say? I'm gaining weight and I haven't changed anything. So now we have weight gain, thrown into the mix. And this is just talking about one hormone.
So, because the adipose tissue, secretes the estrogen. So when you gain weight, and that's another vicious cycle right there, small cycle, increase estrogen, increase the fat, and then increase inflammation going there all the same time. And so I don't know whether we'll jump me too fast in front of your topic. How about the diet? We know the diet a lot of time. We not only people talk about the hormones from the dairy, but just a high calorie to increase the adipose tissue, gaining weight to increase estrogen. Would that make a difference?
I hate the word diet. It's one of those 4-letter words. I love to use the word nutrition instead. And I know that's right up your alley. The way we provide our body with nutrition matters. When we were 20, we could probably eat anything, and we probably did, right? I don't want to think about that. But as we get older, and inflammation is increasing, we do need to pay closer attention to the food that we eat, or the diet, meaning the food we eat, as opposed to being on one, right? The diet that we eat must be able to give the body the energy, the nutrition, that it not only needs to function, but to optimize this
Mm.
body. Because centrally, as we're getting older, you can't say menopause and aging, like they go together. Like you're not in menopause when you're 20. So as you're getting older and you're going through menopause, yes, there are things in our body that are starting to require more attention. We're starting to break down a little bit, slowly, hopefully, but it is a decline, right? We're not the same person at 25 that we are when we are 55 or 65. We can still have the energy if we're paying attention to the food that we eat, that we nourish our body. Now, the challenge, of course, in the US is our standard American diet, which is just full of non-food food. And all this stuff that
We call
comes,
them products.
yeah, food-like products, exactly. So we have this, and it's amazing when you go to the supermarket, when somebody walks by and they have a cart piled full of
Mm.
food, and there's nothing in there that has any nutrition. That is, I believe, the biggest challenge we have in midlife, men and women,
Mm.
because men don't get through this. They don't skate through this time in life easily, and it's not because of the women in their lives, right? Men go through changes themselves. Truly, when we look at the foods that we've been eating um, in the past, so in my generation, say, or in our generation, especially in the US, convenience foods, the cost, they're cheap,
Right.
they're everywhere, they're so convenient, right? And this is our generation, is where moms went back to work, so maybe mom wasn't cooking as often, eating out, pizza Friday and taco Tuesday. I have friends that was a real thing, that every day of the week, or at least 3 days of the week, mom was bringing home fast food, or some kind of convenience food. And so we've been kind of programmed that this is okay food, that this is actually food.
Yeah.
So I believe now we get to this place in midlife where we realize, okay, we need to eliminate, if much as possible. I will say limit, right? Um, because it is important to meet people where they are, right? We need to focus on real food. I've been touting this since the first day I became a coach. Eat real food, make good decisions, and be accountable. That's the foundation of everything that I do with clients. Whether it's weight loss, whether it's life coaching, we need to have a foundation. And your diet is that foundation. If you're eating a healthy diet full of, healthy proteins, healthy fats, lots of colorful veggies, beans and legumes, then your body can actually work optimally and help you through this menopausal transition.
Mhm.
Mm.
Where we're stuck, I believe, when it comes to our diets, the nutrition, is stepping back slowly from all of the convenience foods and the things that we thought were real food but aren't.
Mm. Okay.
So nutrition plays a huge role because, one, as I said, for your body to function properly, but also to maintain a healthy weight, maybe to lose, if that's where we are, but to lose weight and to maintain a healthy weight.
You know what?
Okay.
Also, throw another thing on top of it is it's very easy to be in the emotional eating at this stage. Very
Mm.
emotional.
Yes,
I need to comfort myself.
Mm.
I deserve it.
Mm.
I've
It's
had a
very
rough
easy.
day. I'm under a lot of stress.
Yes.
I agree. Emotion. So when I was younger in my coaching, I didn't understand emotional eating because it wasn't something that I experienced. And right, as a coach, if I don't have personal experience, I don't know how to help that person. So that was somebody who I had a friend who struggled with that. So she was somebody who I would refer those clients to. As I got older, I started to meet more people and my age and understand that it wasn't something that one or two people experienced, but it was something that almost everybody experienced at some point in time, right? Whether it was something that was weekly, daily, yearly, situationally, whatever it may be. And in this day and age, we have so many stressors you just kind of coming at us all the time. um, Social media, news that's on 24/7, all of the things that are happening in the world, right? And our stress level just keeps increasing. And so, like you said, throwing this into the mix, on top of the cortisol, on top of the no sleeping, on top of diets that may not be optimal. Now we're throwing stress, which makes us feel bad or anxious, and eating makes us feel better. I mean, comfort food in, we're in Minnesota. Comfort food in Minnesota always seems to have tater tots on the top.
Yeah. So I have two questions. Only two. Only two. First of
Only
all,
two. Okay.
yes. First of all, as we can see that girls actually started to have menses earlier. Is it related to food? Because too much energy, calories, getting fat tissues. And number two is, as they get menses earlier, how they affect the perimenopausal, menopause, or those age and symptoms.
That's a great question. A two-part question. I love it. Um, Studies are showing, yes, the fact that uh, there are hormones in a lot of the foods that kids are eating and drinking. Milk is a big one. And I remember when my niece and my nephew were growing up, they had, whole milk in the house all the time. And they would have milk at breakfast, milk at lunch, and milk at dinner very often. And so, the hormones in the milk are, being ingested 3 times a day. And then, of course, there are other foods that
Cheese.
can promote that. Cheese, absolutely. Any kind of milk-based product,
Yeah.
right? If there's milk in it and the milk has hormones, the
Yeah.
product will have some hormone. I'm trying to think properties. That's probably the right word.
Mm.
So yes, that is a big part of what they're seeing scientifically. They're doing more and more studies, which I think is important. Hard to do studies on kids, but they really are working on trying to, because we need to help the kids when they're young. So then all of these transitions are easier. So yes, food definitely. Also, like you said, Jane, the amount of food people are eating, especially kids. I mean, you see a lot of children, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're already obese, right? And they
Yep.
may be really young, but they already have their mammary glands. So there's definitely there's definitely a lot going on there. That they're just now in the last handful of years studying more and more.
Yeah.
And so you ask how that can affect perimenopause. If you start your menses early, more than likely you're going to start perimenopause early. Now, the only way to kind of buffer that is pregnancy. So when you're pregnant and after pregnancy, when you're breastfeeding, you're actually kind of putting your body on hold for a couple of years. And so for those of us who have not had children, very often we'll notice that we actually start perimenopause a little bit earlier. So that I knew that years ago, before the actual studies came out. I think that was about 3 or 4 years ago. I read that stuff or read a study, but I knew that years ago, right? Just being a woman who had not had children. it only made sense, right? Because your body is you give it a break from Menzies, and it just changes hormonally too. So to go back to your question, yes, I believe food, especially milk-based products, are are affecting kids in a way, young girls in a way that they are starting to get their Menzies a little early. And it's important to say this, depending on where they're from, because there are definitely groups of people from different countries, different cultures, who do either start sooner or later, uh, just culturally. But here in the U.S., that's kind of changed. We're kind of more, I guess we're becoming more. We're eating the same diet no matter where we're from initially, so it is affecting kids from all cultures as well.
Mhm. Yeah. And even I remember that well, our daughter Hannah, she is doing the rotation at a hospital as a physician assistant student now. And she found that a child was diagnosed type 2 diabetes at age 10 and need to be on metformin.
Wow.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that is the epidemic of the early childhood onset many chronic disease.
The
Yeah.
part that's so heartbreaking, it's not the child's fault. I
Mhm.
mean, you don't want to blame, but at the same time, if the parent is not
Parents.
eating a healthy diet, there's no way the child can.
Mm-hmm.
They have, they have, you learn from your parents, you
Right.
follow their habits.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the children, and I see it every now and then, at the supermarket. I'm like, there's these little girls at, 9, 10 years old, they weigh more than I do.
So,
And that's heartbreaking, when they're 3 foot tall and, they weigh 150 pounds.
mm, so maybe we need to redefine the definition of fast food. So the definition of fast food to me, I feel like it is fast to absorb the energy, the calories, fast to
I
absorb the
think.
sugar, fast to absorb the salt and oil.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
The
that
high
it that
energy
makes
food.
sense. And many of the fast food, processed foods, like they go through pretty quickly and they affect your blood sugar really quickly, right? As opposed to, having a healthy meal, a salad with beans and legumes and lentils or lots of veggies. That's not going to raise your blood sugar, right? I mean, it may a little bit, but rather than the hamburger that, from the fast food joint and the French fries, that's going to spike it. Oh, and don't forget the Coke.
Mm,
That's going to
yeah.
spike it. And then, of course, what happens is the highs and the lows are really tough. And of course, then what happens? It affects mood. And if you're in midlife and you're already having mood issues,
Yeah.
these blood sugar swings aren't helping.
So let's talk about the insulin a little bit, insulin resistance, because we talk about inflammation. Insulin resistance is one common forms of the uh, chronic inflammation. So how about that? Is that related to estrogen or progesterone decline? Are they related, or just because those decline also tied to the gaining weight and then causing the insulin resistance?
The
How
answer to
they all?
everything you just said is yes.
Okay, we're
The
done.
short answer is yes. Okay, next question. I'm kidding. Let me see. So when we talk about estrogen, again, this is one of those things we think of as, a pregnancy hormone, a fertility hormone. Um, One of my mentors who I follow, been following for years, she said in not in an interview and then again in a master class that I was watching, estrogen is a female life hormone. This isn't a hormone that affects women throughout their life. Why? Because we literally have estrogen receptors from our brains to our bladders, right? And estrogen has a inflammatory protection, right? It protects against inflammation. And we know inflammation is kind of a root of many of the diseases we have today. Insulin resistance being one of these problems, or one of these kind of precursors, let's say, to a disease. So insulin resistance in itself it's a problem, but it leads to the big disease. So insulin resistance essentially is when your body is pumping out extra insulin because either you're overweight. Usually, it's because you're overweight, but that's not 100% of the time. Like it's it depends on your body.
Mm.
And so your body is pumping out all this extra insulin, but your cells can't actually um, absorb it. So you have this extra insulin kind of floating around. And insulin resistance is the precursor to type 2 diabetes, and sadly obesity.
Mm.
And I think there
So
was another question in there.
it's Dr. J,
Did
you
I
have
answer your
another
question,
question?
Jen?
May, go ahead.
Well, if you have a medical question, I'll let you have it because I am going to ask very general questions. I just want to see the big picture of Denise
I,
coaching process.
I'm not qualified to talk about estrogen right here, so I keep quiet.
You just know what it is. It's this thing that women have. Though don't forget, men also
Has
have
estrogen.
estrogen, obviously not to the levels that women do, but if you've ever noticed a overweight, obese man, he may start to look like he has mammary glands. He kind of grows boobs.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
from estrogen.
because there's extra estrogen. And as you mentioned earlier, fat cells and create estrogen, and so that's what causes that
Right.
phenomenon.
Right. So while we have this discussion and I have like, the picture of phone calls from women, pretty much state very common struggles, brain fog. I have been told I am normal. All the lab shows nothing wrong with me. But I know I am not in the best stage of myself. I don't have the confidence. I I get tired so easy. I don't have a good sleep. I try to exercise, but I don't have the time. But I continue to gain weight. I don't know what to do. And truly, a lot of time got to very emotional, and then they feel guilty because they are not able to exercise. They blend everything into the exercise because when they continue to have weight gain. When you have a client like this, how do you start your first step to help them, and then transition them to a better version of themselves?
Sure. So a couple of things that we do right off is I talk about inflammation and what that's doing, like how that's affecting their body, because like they need an answer. They've tried all these different
Mm-hmm.
things, but no one has said anything about inflammation. And
Mm-hmm.
so how do you combat inflammation? Nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's nutrition, sleep. So we talk about this and kind of decide what are the things, because you can't affect all of them at once. You can't fix everything at once. And fix is not the right word, because we're not broken. We're just going through a transition we've never been through before, right? I'm living in a new body today. I've never been this old.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah,
start with
that's true.
understanding kind of the bottom, like let's start here. It's inflammation. Let's start with nutrition. And from there, we talk about the hormones and how they all affect one another, right? They're not just one off. And like I said, they're never balanced. Like they need to work in harmony. And that's what we're trying to do. So first it's nutrition. And then we need to work on sleep, because the nutrition is great, but if the person's not sleeping and the cortisol levels are high and they're gaining weight, you're stuck. They're still stuck. So those are the first two things that I focus on with my clients. And then the next piece, and there are other things depending on the client that we're talking about. But the next thing is strength training. A woman in midlife needs to be strength training, not just for today, for the body that they want, but for the life and the body that they want in 5, 10, 20 years from now. The decisions we make today are going to affect us. Maybe not right this minute, but they are going to affect us cumulatively over time. So those are the three things that I have seen work the most or the fastest, that people can understand, and they understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? When I first started out as a health coach, I would give people meal plans. I hate meal plans, right? They don't make any sense because I'm saying to this person, this is what you're going to eat this week. They haven't had to think about it. They haven't had to do anything to actually change their lifestyle. So if, I stop giving them meal plans, they don't know what to do. So focusing on nutrition in this manner, they know protein is, we need to focus on protein, right? When it comes to midlife, sarcopenia, the muscle loss is a real thing. And this is when I think we start to really notice it, is by the time we're in midlife. By the time we hit 50, we're like, wait a minute, what's going on with the arm thing here? I always know I never looked like this before. Right. So all of these things, so if we're losing muscle, essentially what's happening is we're gaining fat and we're getting flabby. And not one of us wants that.
No.
So strength training helps to build the muscle, helps maintain what we have, but also to get to that next level to build the muscle. Muscle burns fat or burns energy more than fat does. So then you have that thermo effect. So weight training, resistance training, strength training, give it a name, is really, it's a non-negotiable in midlife. And women will fight me on it. Oh, I don't need to do that. These 3-pound weights. I'm like, you get rid of the 3-pound weights. Right?
Yeah.
You need to. But back in the 80s, back in the 80s, the 3-pound and the 5-pound weights, and we were all kind of dancing with our weights, Zumba and all those things. They're fun. You can still do that, but you need to include weight training at least twice a week. And real strength training. Like I said, get rid of the 3-pound weights, ladies.
Yeah, I'm very minimum. I shouldn't say minimum. When I talk to my patients, I tend not to give them a lot of information, overload them. So, for example, nutrition, I give them basic principles and just go do it. I don't give them recipes unless they ask, because I feel that they don't even know what they are going to eat. They don't even know what those ingredients are. So I'll get as simple as G bombs. Just make sure you eat those. Make sure you count 30 different brand foods. So basic thing for them to start. And I'd like to use smarter goal. I know coach, everyone talk about smart goal. I'd like to have a smarter. I got the ENR. The E is entertaining. You need to have fun doing that. Entertaining. And then you have the R. It's reward, how you reward yourself. So you need to have a goal. Then of course, I told them that the reward is not ice cream. Unless
reward is not ice cream. Then it's okay. But it can't be yay. Cream, right? I'm gonna actually go back, and you mentioned G bombs. I know what they are. May knows what they are, but I just want to double check if you could tell us, because the audience may be like, what?
Yeah, that's from Dr. Joe Furman. I just remember, don't sell it at the airport or in the airplane. G bomb. It stands for G, greens, and then B is beans, and then O is onions, And M is mushrooms, and the next B is berries, and the last one S is seeds. So G bombs.
G-bombs.
Incorporate those in your meals every day.
And
It's
surfactant.
actually quite simple.
Yes.
And I wonder if, with my clients like yours, when you have a foundation, and G-Bombs is a great foundation, right?
Yes.
You can build any kind of meal,
Yes.
breakfast, lunch, or dinner, with just following that simple foundation. I love that.
Right. And then that May mentioned, may always talk about the nutrition value of the vegetable, not just the lettuce. So I'll tell my patient another sign is from like PCR. May anyone talk about eat a rainbow, different colors, and then they look at me and say eat a colors. They say yeah, eat colors, different colors. And unless I had an 8-year girl, I had to tell her that it's not Skittles. So
Yeah, no, that's not the right. Don't eat that rainbow.
Not the same
Right.
rainbow.
The
Yeah.
same
So it's very
rainbow.
simple for them to think about, oh, I don't eat just lettuce. I need to have different. They didn't even couldn't think of other colors of the vegetables. So I had to go through with them. How about carrots, bell peppers, and everything? They said, oh, yeah, that's different color. That's different color. So people don't even think about that. They just say, oh, I have salad. Okay, great. What do you have? Lettuce? Well, yeah, it's plants, but how can we up a little bit? So that's how I started out. I just don't want to give them recipe to overwhelm them. Just start with little things, basic principles.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes the most sense, because once you empower the client, in your case, the patient, my client, once you empower them, when they come to you, they want help,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? And us just saying, here, follow this, that's not really helping them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I remember that uh you were featured at one of our Lotus Health online discussion group. It was about connection or it's somehow, I think that's
Stress.
related to stress management. Yes. And um I think I think the stress, the connection, and also the passion, how you love yourself. Remember to be gentle, nice to yourself. That is so important, as a lot of people, but not only women. Well, I'll just say it right now, since we talk about the a lot of women population that um, going through those challenges of the complexity of our hormone change. Um, I think that we all want to be, our voice want to be heard. We want somebody to understand us, and that part of the emotional help is so important. And I
And,
think you play a beautiful part to help people to continue to grow their self-esteem and be able
Thank
to
you.
empower themselves.
and I think it's not just women. No, men has not just estrogen, but also testosterone. You can see nationwide, there are so many men's currently popping up just for testosterone. And
Okay.
not to mention, men are also affected by menopause. We're victims of menopause.
Okay. Well, next time, save a stage for you. Okay.
And truly, Jen, I do feel for you,
Thank you.
and for the men in the audience, for two reasons. One, yes, um, when the woman in your life is going through menopause and the changes, especially if when she doesn't understand what's going on yet, and she can't um, explain what's going on, she can't really communicate what's going on. You're kind of the person there all the time that kind of gets the brunt of the frustration,
Mm.
the anger, or whatever the emotion is. So I
That's what
definitely
we
feel
harm.
for you, and truly, I tell this freely, with my story. My husband, one day, I don't know what I said, and he doesn't remember either, but I must have said something that was so out of character for me that he just grabbed me by the shoulders gently, looked me in the face, and said, something is going on with you. We need to figure it out. Now, I think he said after that, because you're driving me crazy. He says he did not say that. So absolutely, this is important for women to know, but it's really equally as important for men to understand what their women are going through so they can, one, not take it personally. Please don't take it personally, but really be able to support and help the women in their lives
Mm,
um to to address it and really to live more, I'm going to use this word again, harmoniously together, because we see at this stage in life so many couples um, start to drift apart. Whether they stay married or not, they start to drift apart. And it's just a lack of communication, not by fault, but just because of lack of understanding and awareness.
mm.
So I do feel for the men, because yes, you kind of do get a bit of the brunt.
Thank you.
But let's not forget, as you say, men go through stuff too. And I think men don't talk about it as much as women are now to each other.
Eh,
But you're right. There are studies that are coming out, when it comes to testosterone. And by the way, women, yes, we do have testosterone,
Right.
not to the extent or level that men do, but the testosterone for us is the motivation, it's the drive. And again, it can affect our mood. So all of these things working together in harmony is what we want. But for men, with testosterone, yes, it starts to decline, probably not, it definitely not as early as it does in women, and probably not to the same extent, depending on the man, right?
Yeah.
If you've always been a viral kind of go-getter kind of guy, and all of a sudden, you're starting to notice, that's just not me anymore. It may not just be age.
Right. So, and I think that's a reason why the men's currently are popping up nationwide. So I
I
think
agree.
there's a two aspects. Number one, men, just like women going through menopause, we didn't really realize it until it happens, and we don't talk about it. Men don't usually like to talk. And secondly, we're also have been affected by the menopause, so we're double whammed.
The double whammy.
Yeah. So yeah. So as we were getting closer to the end, any last minute advice you give to everyone?
Hold on. Before we get into that stage, I do have something to say.
Uh-oh.
Remember when we went through the CHIP program, and then there's one session talk about men likes to be the fixer, so they don't talk
Yeah.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Women, they tend to talk about it, and
Yeah.
then after that, they feel much better,
Right.
which means that as we see the needs for men, the needs for women, maybe we should create a space for people to
Cool.
talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Coach?
So next episode we'll have Denise to facilitate a men's support group.
Okay. I look for it.
And testosterone, not menopause.
Yeah, testosterone. We'll talk testosterone and men, and men going through their. We actually have there is a real name for like menopause. That's not the
Yeah.
right word, but there is a real scientific name for it, and I can't think of it off the top of my head.
So we'll open to one, and every man can wear hoodies and then disguise their voice
They
too. So
don't
we
need to. They can just be up there open conversation.
Oh,
okay.
come as you are.
Okay, Denise, any advice?
So women, we know we have these things going on, right? And it's kind of a litany of things. Um, I've created I call this is too many words, I realize. Menopause hormone clarity tool. Essentially, it's a self-assessment. And why I think this is important is we have all these things that we're experiencing, and things we may not even have related to menopause or the menopause transition. The clarity tool is really good because it's a self-assessment. So it's asked questions, and like I said, things you may not have connected to menopause, but then at the end of the survey, or sorry, the self assessment, tells you exactly what are the two dominant hormones that you're struggling with,
Mm,
right? And most of the time women think, oh, it's just going to be estrogen, and it's not, it's cortisol. But
mm,
until you have something that says, this is really what's going on, I need to dig deeper into this, as opposed to deep digging into everything and going down the rabbit hole. So that is one thing I recommend for people, and I'll send you the link to the menopause. It's a free tool, but I think it's really something that is eye-opening. And when it goes back to my foundation, Eat Real Food, Make Good Decisions, and Be Accountable, the only way you can make good decisions is with good information.
So can men fill out that questionnaire for their significant others?
That would be fun to do. I should have my husband do that. Why
Okay.
not?
How can people get in touch with you if they need more information or need consultation?
Sure. On social media, you can find me. I'm the Menopause Mentor MN, because I am in Minnesota, or my website is simply my name, DeniseStegall.com.
Thank you very much. May, do you have anything?
No, I don't want to open up another topic because we could
Okay.
be going on for another hour. This is so fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Healing Step to Wellness. I'm Dr. J,
I'm May,
guiding you toward whole person health, one step
and one bite at a time.
at a time.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Healing steps to wellness. One step, one bite each day. Healing steps to wellness, guiding you along the way. Body, mind, and spirit, stronger every day. Healing.